All right, we're going to start with the legs, which are the easiest joints to start with, and it's a great foundation just to begin the whole rigging process. We're going to draw the legs out the same way that we did in the first edition, and that's really about the only thing that's similar to the first edition of this training session that we've created. This kit goes a much deeper exploration into the rigging process, constraining process, and getting your characters able to be animated very quickly. All right, this is the file that we're going to be using. It's lesson 01 start here, and I'll be saving my lesson, my file at the end of each lesson. So at the end of lesson 1, when we get her legs built and her feet built, I'll call that lesson 2. So I'll save it as lesson 2. So that's where we'll start with lesson 2. So at any time you get stuck, open up one of these files and you can carry on, or you can compare mine against yours. Now, this is a very low-res model. You can definitely do a poly smooth. We don't have any face on here. That's going to be saved later for a more advanced facial setup kit. We are looking at the 5 fingers. She has a basic foot, no toes. So once we teach you one concept, you'll be able to apply it over and over and over to different characters. They don't have to always be female. You can do monsters and creatures. It's going to be the same essential setup. Just modifying the joints and different controls you might need, but hopefully I'll have a chance to show you how to build all those from scratch. That way you can apply them to your own situations. All right, let's first create a layer here, and we'll just double click to rename that. We'll call this layer geometry. Okay, and I'm not going to give it a color. We'll just leave it plain. We'll say save, or okay, and then we'll go ahead and add this geometry to that layer. So right click, add selected objects, and we'll hit this option right here to template that layer. Okay, so now she's not selectable. Well, let's jump over to our side view, and to make this a little bit easier to see, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the grid, and I will turn it on from time to time so it's when we need it. It just makes it a little bit easier to see. All right, what we want to do is go up here to Skeleton, Joint Tool, and we're going to go ahead and go to the option box. Now let's reset this tool, which is something that you want to get into a habit of doing, especially if you enjoy tweaking your settings before you use the tool. You'll definitely want to always hit reset so you know what you're working with. What we want to do is turn off the default orientation from XYZ to none. Okay, we'll establish that ourselves. All right, so now that that's set, let's go ahead and draw our first joint. We're going to do it right here at the waist, hip area. Okay, it's going to be right inside the meat of her leg in her hip area. So we're right about there. Click once to draw the joint. You can move the joint around as long as you don't let go of your mouse. All right, now the next joint that we're going to draw is at the knee. And I'm not going to put it right in the middle of the knee because that would go straight down, and we don't want that. We want a slight bend. So we'll put it towards the front middle part of the knee. Okay, right about there. Then I'll draw another joint down to the ankle. And notice as I keep clicking, it keeps drawing, this is called a joint chain. So it's going to keep drawing these joints and chaining them together. Okay, now we're at the foot. I just drew the ankle. I'm going to now click right here at the ball of the foot. Right around there. And this is a nice little trick that Delano taught me. If you hold down Shift and click, you'll draw a joint that is parallel or on the same plane as the previous joint. All right, we'll just hit Enter. And there is our first set of joints. Now let's jump over to the front view. And you'll notice that it's in the middle of her body. So let's activate the Move tool and move over this joint chain until it's right, let me frame this up, right in the middle of her knee. All right, so that'll get it placed up really nice. Now, something that we're going to try our hardest to do so it becomes less confusing is rename our objects as we go. So let's go ahead and open up our channel box, which is this little icon right here. You can also hit Control-A twice. And let's rename this. This is going to be the left hip. And notice I'm going to put left all underscore or all lowercase, capital H, hip. Okay, so I'll follow that same convention throughout my naming. Left knee. You can press down on your keyboard to move down through the chain. Okay, this is going to be left ankle. All right. And this is going to be left foot. Okay, notice this is at the ball here, ball of the foot. That's going to be left foot. And then finally, that last joint is going to be left toe. All right, so as you can see, it's a very, very simple setup. Okay, drawing your first joint chain. Now, what we want to do is create what's called a reverse foot control. Now, the reason for that is very simple. Let's say we wanted to lift up this foot. Well, we could easily rotate this joint. Actually, rotate this guy. But there's a little problem. We can't rotate the heel. Okay, we want to lift the whole foot up from here back. So what we need is some place over here that we can do what's called a pivot. We want to pivot from here. Well, because these joints need to rotate here, here, and here, we want to trick the system into thinking it can also rotate back here. So what people have been doing for years is what's called a reverse foot control, where you draw the joints in reverse and then trick the system into thinking it can use those joints for its rotation. Okay. So we'll draw that. Let's go into our side view here, and we'll frame up our foot. Hit F to frame that up. And let's draw our joints out. Now, you notice I have a blank shelf here. I went to my custom. Here's all my other shelves, but I went to my custom shelf. I'm going to start adding tools here that I use all the time. So I'm going to be using the joint tool quite a bit through this lesson. So I'll hold down Control-Shift, go to Skeleton, and we'll go to Joint Tool. Okay, and we'll add that to here. All right, so let's activate that. Now this can get very confusing. What I want to do is click somewhere here around the heel. Okay, hold down Shift. So I click and drag right out here to the toe. Hold down Shift. So I click right under the ball, and then click right here near the ankle. Just like that. Now, I'm going to move this down just a bit so it's a little bit easier to see for demonstration purposes. As you can see, what I have here is called a reverse foot control. Now, the reason that they call this a reverse foot control is this joint will follow this joint, this one will follow this one, and this one will follow this one. But look at this. I can now take the entire foot and lift it up from the heel, which is really cool. I can take this and lift up on the toe. Okay, so it doesn't do it by default, but just this little bit of setup will get us in the right position. Now, what I'd like to do is move this into the correct location. As you can see, this is in the middle of the origin. We want to get this lined up nicely. So the trick for that, which is a great trick that you're going to learn over and over and over, is a type of snapping, which is vertex snapping. So I activated the x-axis here. You notice it turned yellow. So let me do that again so you see it. Okay, I'm going to the front view. You notice it's red. If I click once on it, it becomes yellow. Now what I'm going to do is middle click. Hold down V on the keyboard, keep it held down, then middle click and just kind of move my mouse just a hair for this guy to find one of these vertexes to snap to. And if you look, it's snapped over into that position perfectly. Okay, we're going to use this over and over and over, especially when we get our control curves going. All right, let's go ahead and name these, and then in the next lesson we'll talk about IK handles. So the first thing that we're going to want to name this is called the left LR for reverse lock. Okay, so we'll call this left RL for reverse lock base. Okay, so that's going to be the base of the foot. Press down on my keyboard. This is going to be the left RL toe. left RL foot, and then the last one is the left RL ankle. All right. So at this point, before actually I end this lesson, let's go ahead and add this stuff to its own layers here. I'll go ahead and make a new layer called left controls. All right, and we'll make those kind of this dark blue. We'll go ahead and add that there. And then I'll make another layer, and we'll make these kind of this maroon red. We'll call this right controls. Okay. All right, so that's a great place to start. Next, we're going to talk about IK handles and how you use those inside of your scene.